And yeah, and then also I found by the time we got through like the really, like sort of gnarly part of Amanecer, when we just sort of stand still, I was so exasperated and out of breath. And
Yeah, and then we had
I
to
was
do
just
that
like,
like
how does
next part.
Beyonce do it? Right?
Yeah, I
Beyonce's
don't
like
know.
running all over the place, dancing, doing her
Because she
thing.
does it every day.
I know, but I'm
She
like, I did it for a
practices.
couple weeks and I couldn't handle it.
I'm sitting here laughing because I remember that first rehearsal, he's like, you can just pretend. And we're all like, we're going to sit and like, and then the first day he's like, okay, let's try it for real. And half of us were like, oh God, here we go. Like
Yeah.
grabbing our backs and legs. And that line, the alphas were behind me. It was always like, yes, babe.
Yeah.
I 100% did that. My name is Stephanie Broussard, and right now I'm a preschool teacher at a dual immersion program where we speak Spanish and English. And yeah, it's really fun. We're in class. It's crazy. It's wild. And yes, I sing with Ryan and Natalia in Border Crossing.
Sure. Hello, my name is Ryan LaBoy, and I, like Stephanie, am also a teacher. I teach at North Hennepin Community College, so slightly different level of teaching, but still just as fun. We are not in person, so I'm getting to really test my merits of online teaching. I'm the choir director and voice instructor at North Hennepin, and I love the work that I do, and I also have the pleasure of singing with both Natalia and Stephanie in Border Crossing. In terms of how I got into music, it was elementary school. My music teacher's name still is Ms. Duncan. She's just no longer my teacher. So shout out to Ms. Duncan. When I was in 5th grade, when you in elementary school can typically choose either to be in band or whatever other ensemble, I really was eager to be in the band, but the only instrument they had left at the time was the trombone, which my brother played. And I knew one thing for certain about myself at that age, which was I did not want to be like my brother. So I decided not to join band, and my consolation prize was being offered a place in choir. And so Ms. Duncan took me under wing, and I started singing then and haven't stopped since.
I was just thinking, I was like, if Ryan were a band instrument, he'd be like either something complex like an oboe or like a trumpet player. There is no in between.
Oh, okay.
Right,
I'm trying to think if this is a compliment. Oboe and trumpet.
I'm just saying.
They're very bright, present instruments, so I appreciate the shout out to my
you're
personality.
Very bright and present is exactly where I was going with it.
Oh, thanks, Natalia.
And Stephanie, tell me about you. Where did you grow up?
A little bit all over. So I was born in San Diego. My dad was in the Navy, and he's since retired. But yes, so my parents met in Hawaii. They moved to California, had me and my younger brother. We then lived in Texas, in Florida for like 10 months because we hated it, and Maryland. And then that's where he retired. But now I live in Minnesota. My mom's family is actually mostly in St. Paul. And then my dad's family is spread out in the Houston area and in Louisiana also. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit all over. And then music. So in California, I went to like this very small Baptist school, and because the school system sucked. And yes. And so that's where me and my younger brother went. And I remember singing in the choir a lot, lots of singing there. I took piano lessons and I was terrible and I hated it. And yes, so then we moved to Texas, and my mom asked, oh, do you want to keep doing piano? And I said, no, I would love to do like voice lessons, I think. And she's like, what? Okay. So she found somebody who lived like 3 blocks from us and charged like $7.50 per half hour.
Yes.
Like, oh my gosh, Kenny,
Dang.
I know. And she was amazing. She was amazing. And like, I'm still in contact with her. Shout out to Beth Hookia out in little
my God,
tiny
this
Portland,
episode
Texas. Yeah.
sponsored by Beth and Miss Duncan. Good grief.
Yes.
It's
Love
the
these
foundation,
ladies.
man. You got to
Yeah.
name it.
What was it like coming to Minnesota? Did you experience any sort of culture shock? I mean, was it what were your first impressions when you came?
It's interesting. That
You
was
got it. You are Minnesota.
That's what
You
you
nailed
say,
it.
right? That's what you say. I mean, I need to preface
Say
all of this by
more.
saying I am happily married to a Minnesotan. So I love Minnesota. I have been here the past 7 or 8 years. I really do consider it to be home. And also, I very often still have my foot in my mouth. There is a language barrier between growing up in New York and New Jersey and learning how that translates to life in Minnesota, and just how directly or indirectly you say something that it's just totally strange to be here and have to translate them.
I mean, even like moving from California to Texas, basically every time I moved, I had to learn a new language.
Mhm.
So when I moved from California to Texas, my first friend that I made, she said, no, you're not going to visit your aunt. You're going to visit your aunts. And I'm like, they're the same word. We say them differently. But
Yeah.
I like had a Southern accent by the time I left Texas. Like I had one, and I still say y'all and whatever.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, moving to the East Coast where like things are a little more harsh and straightforward and direct. Like that was something that I also learned and took on. And so moving here to go to school at the U of M, yes, was very hard, I think, for like my friendships and like the relationships that I built. Like I'm a little more direct than people are typically here. So
there's a gentler way of communicating and being with each other here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I've definitely benefited, I think, from like my very kind and sweet friends. Like I've learned,
Absolutely.
I've taken some of that on, which I think has been good for me.
Yes, I have learned the power of affirmation, which is still a challenge for me because I didn't grow up on affirmation. Like, why do I have to tell you that something went well or that you did something good here? But you know, it's true. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and I grew up on a lot of vinegar.
Growing up, so wherever we lived, we always lived in like Spanish speaking communities somehow. I am not Latina. My mom is white and my dad is Black. And I think that too, like not, I don't know. I have like complicated feelings about, like my appearance and the way that people perceive me, because a lot of people look at me and will like right away think that I'm a Spanish speaker, and like not Black, which I'm mixed. And so like, it's just, I don't know, a complicated, like the way people view me, the things that I'm interested in, and what I actually am.
I would say, like, you know, growing up as a mixed kid, as a biracial kid, it's a little bit painful, at least in my experience. Similarly, Stephanie, because of my appearance, when people look at me, they don't assume that I'm Puerto Rican, right? I'm very white passing. And so when I try to assert that Latino identity, the first test that I'm put to is, well, do you speak Spanish? And oh my gosh, the pain and the frustration that caused in my life for so long. And even still, you know, Natalia, I call you mija. And, you know, I'd like use little bits of Spanish here and there, but it's something that I've had to learn and seek out on my own, as opposed to necessarily learning that within the structure of my family, which is where you traditionally would learn that. Border crossing gives me the opportunity to connect with my Latino roots with a group of people who feel passionately about culture in the same way that I do. Right? It's taught me, yes, it is entirely possible to be passionate about classical music and be Latino, to be fully who I am. That's one of the things I love about border crossing.
I relate so much. I mean, being half Black and like having my dad as like the Black figure in my life, that is closest to me. He was deployed for a lot of my childhood. So he was like off doing Navy things on Navy boats. And so like it was essentially like my white mom at home with like all these brown children and like, which like power to her, like raising like,
yeah, big ups to the single moms.
yeah,
I mean,
Black kids in the 90s. Like, okay,
yes.
mom. But and then also like not being close with my dad's side of the family. Like we never really lived near them except for the 4 years that we were in Texas. And so like, yeah, like seeking out like my Blackness, but then also being a classical singer, I too have been like, oh, and yeah, you're Black, but you like white things.
Right.
And yeah, just like as a high schooler and young adult, like, what does that mean?
Right.
Like, what does that mean?
And I totally feel you about that idea of like, how do you find it and who gives you permission? And I agree with you. I think border crossing for me has been the permission to be like, no, you are Latina. You can sing this music. How lovely it is to look around the room and see people who also love culture, who love Spanish language. And what's been interesting too for me is as a classical musician, like we learn about Western European classical music, but some of the stuff that we've done, it's like, oh, and this was written by a Black priest in Mexico. And you're like, this sounds like Haydn. And it just all of a sudden, I think as a teacher, it just gives me this whole other language and all this other repertoire that you're like, look at this. This is Black excellence.
For me, border crossing has definitely fulfilled that, like, oh, cool. We don't just have to sing music by like European white men that are dead. Like there's so much more and it's not sung. And why is that? That has been like an interest of mine for a long time. So even in my undergrad, I did a lot of like deep dives into music that is in Spanish or in like languages from Latin America and South America. And I had done a program in Spain, the Barcelona Festival of Song, and and there I learned a lot about like music in Catalan, music from Brazil, and it was just so eye-opening that there's like a literal huge world of music that nobody ever really gets to hear. And like I'm so happy that border crossing is here in Minnesota showcasing a lot of that music, and I'm so happy that like I get to sing with them.
Yeah, all of those things about border crossing. And what's interesting about border crossing is the majority of our singing membership is not Latino, right? I mean, there's a good handful of people who are, and certainly I would say most, if not all of the singers in border crossing have a penchant for Latin or Hispanic culture. And it's just so powerful to see that prioritized. And in some ways, it could even be argued that it's more powerful to see a group where the majority of singers are taking such care to respect, honor, celebrate, uplift a culture that is not their own, knowing that there are people whose culture they're representing in the room. Right. I think another really powerful experience I had actually was with vocal lessons when I was singing with the ensemble singers. We went down to Mexico City and we sang Beethoven's Ninth Symphony with a chorus down there. And that was the first time I had ever been in a chorus, a large symphonic chorus, where the majority of people were Latino or Latina. And we're singing in German, we're singing Beethoven. But I remember, like being so emotionally convicted by that moment. It's like something inside of me just like, I don't know, started vibrating, right? There was just like this like awakening, or I don't know, this very powerful, palpable feeling that, like I said, these worlds can coexist. I can be both a classical musician and a Latino at the same time.
I don't know. It's lovely to be making music in a way that feels informed, and that I think it feels ethical is maybe the word that I want to use. It feels like you're making music that is, I don't know, not that I don't want to shame any other groups that I sing with, because I love the groups that I've performed with, but it just, I don't know, there's just something nice about knowing that you're doing historically informed performances.
Yeah. Or that you're doing a song from another culture, not as a like really splashy opener or great way to finish your concert, but that it fits within the thematic content, or that it's integral and central to the message that you're programming, to the story that you're telling.
Yeah, I think that's what I most appreciate about the way that we perform the music in Border Crossing, is that yeah, I think so much other music is used as this showpiece or a finisher or like something fun and festive. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is all serious music and we're going to present it to you because this is a real piece that you should hear. And I think that that is so important that it's sung, that it's done in that setting. And I love the goal of diversifying the audience too, because it's not just like the same same old of Minnesota audiences that
Yes.
that I think come to hear us. So
Yeah,
yeah, I like appreciate that goal.
when we're singing over at the Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in St. Paul, and you know, you see these Latino families come in, or I see these children, I think one of those little boys could be me, right? And maybe he doesn't have the courage in the same way that I did not have the courage to claim his identity and interest in classical music for himself. And I think, you know, there's a great pride I take in performing for audiences that are not familiar to classical music. Also, you know, growing up with my white family, they were very working class. So I love getting to perform for people who don't necessarily have the means, the vocabulary, the experience of classical music to just open doors and just invite them in. I think that's a really special thing that we do in border crossing in particular.
Yeah, I agree.
So we were just chatting about like doing a deep dive into a culture and really just engaging deeply with a piece of music. And La Pasión was really, I think, that experience. I mean, not only did we get to work with members of La Escola who were just phenomenal to work with, but also working with Maria, who is, I mean, I think as a conductor, seeing somebody know a piece of music, I mean, down to every rest was phenomenal. I'm curious to know what that experience was like for you.
It was amazing. I mean, it was definitely, it was so challenging. It was like, I never felt secure though about like, about most of what we were singing. Like, oh my gosh, where are we? Ah, wow. What line am I singing? I don't even know. There were so many moving parts. It was so fun. It was really fulfilling. It was just really fulfilling.
Yeah, I feel similarly, Stephanie, when you say that you never really felt secure. I mean, Natalia, you're right. You have to like count for your life. And then you're doing it in a language for many of us that is not our first language. And but I found that it wasn't necessarily a lack of preparedness. It was like somehow that insecurity was like motivation, right? It wasn't like I feel insecure, therefore I'm not going to perform with conviction. It was like that bit of energy that kept me on the edge of my seat or the tip of my toes, really like present and engaged in the performance, because I had to be so conscious and aware. Because it is just such a beast of a piece, and there are so many moving parts. And you know, we're literally like contorting our bodies and our sound, and we're clapping flamenco style. You know?
I was like, I'm gonna have to like step out when we do that part because I'm going to mess up. Oh my gosh, the like clapping. Yes, the fat, like my butt never looked so good because of all of the squatting that we had to do and the slow rising.
For a choir. That was a very the amanecer. I have never raised my body so slowly in my entire life. And yeah, and then also I found by the time we got through like the really, like sort of gnarly part of Amanecer, when we just sort of stand still, I was so exasperated and out of breath. And
Yeah, and then we had
I
to
was
do
just
that
like,
like
how
next
does
part.
Beyonce do it? Right?
Yeah, I
Beyonce's
don't
like
know.
running all over the place, dancing, doing her
She does
thing.
it every day.
I know, but I'm
She
like, I did it for a
practices.
couple weeks and I couldn't handle it.
I'm sitting here laughing because I remember that first rehearsal, he's like, you can just pretend. And we're all like, we're gonna sit and like, and then the first day he's like, okay, let's try it for real. And half of us were like, oh god, here we go. Like
Yeah.
grabbing our backs and legs. And that line, the alphas were behind me. It was always like, yes, babe.
Yeah.
I 100% did that. Yes.
But here's the thing. We had those members from La Scola with us, those 9 fabulous singers plus Maria. And despite how physically fatigued I was by that in that moment, not necessarily vocally, but just like physically fatigued, I just felt this huge responsibility. I cannot fail them. Because to them, this piece is so important to who they are, to their identity, both as Venezuelans, but particularly as members of that ensemble and just individuals. That, I mean, they were all in a way that I don't think I've been all in a choral performance before.
Never.
And I was like, well, if they're there, I need to be there because
Yeah.
they're depending on me. We are culture bearers for their culture right now. So I need to become Venezolano and I need to just get it done. So I'm a little out of breath. My thighs they're tired right now, but I'm going to keep it moving because somebody else is depending on me.
Well, and the like movements of all those pieces, like watching them and how like far they go to
Wow, yeah.
to
Yeah, it's
present
like,
the piece. Like all of the Minnesotans in the room, like all like I mean, just who are scared to move, who are like, am I doing this right? I don't know. Is it too much? It's probably never too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was also like I don't know, like the coming together of cultures. I really loved seeing that, and I think us reacting to like them showing us how to do some of the movements, and then like needing to reach their level of commitment.
This is a perfect transition to the world of education. Stephanie, you work with early little ones, early childhood ed, and Ryan, you work with the big ones in college. How did you find this love for education?
When I graduated as a 5th year student from the U of M with my speech language hearing science major and music, I was like, what am I going to do? Because I actually I wanted to move back to Texas, and I just really didn't make the plans. And I kind of fell into this position at the school where I teach now. And I learned a lot. And I really got to use my my speech language hearing science major working there, because what I was doing was basically like assessing children who had like language deficits and working with them in that way. So like doing small group interventions. And now I'm leading a class, but it is very fun. And I've had a lot of great mentors from the school. It's also kind of fulfilled like my desire to really like learn Spanish and to use it every day. And like, I love having gone back to preschool for Spanish because everything is labeled and I get to use it every day.
Shameless.
I know. So it like fulfilled that like selfish need that I have. And but I think also yeah, like the power of education. So I don't teach music, and music is so powerful and can make people feel so powerful. But I love I just think at this small age, at such like young age, like 3 to 5 year olds, you can really, really see the growth from the beginning of year to the year to the end of the year. And so to like reflect back on like a child who hardly spoke or who knew no Spanish or no English, and like to see where they go is really amazing for like me as a teacher and as like an adult in their life who takes care of them through the day. but then also for them. And yeah, like I love, I remember doing my first year of teaching there. I was doing like a rhyming intervention with a girl, and like she did really well, and like she didn't know what rhyming was. And so after like a few weeks of working with her, I was like, wow, like you did it, you know it, you know this now. And I gave her stickers, and I was like pumping her up, and she like was so happy, and she was like shaking. She was like, I have so many stickers. Like it was, yeah.
Man, the power of the sticker.
Yes.
It is the same in college. I will give my students stickers that say I sang today on them.
Oh.
And I'll tell you, it works every time.
I would rock that. I love that. Totally. I want stickers like that.
Yeah. Ahmed, if you're listening, we want stickers.
We want stickers.
Oh my God. Could you imagine like a sticker practice chart? I would practice every day. If I get to put a sticker, it says, I sang today.
Yeah.
You know what? I had that for my piano lessons in high school, and it didn't work for me, but I maybe we'll try it now.
Well, I mean, it's, I've been teaching for a decade now, so that's strange to say. I really found my sense of identity in my high school choral experience, right? Like it was as a gay man in rural New York, singing in choir was a really affirming place for me. And I thought once I realized, as we were preparing for, college applications and whatever, that I could do that for a living, that I could create that space for someone else and sort of pay it forward. I was really intrigued and passionate about it. And so for me, the study of music and music education, on one hand, is very selfish because I love music and I feel very passionately about it. And I like I said before, I love the time travel that you can do and the way that we can learn about different cultures and peoples and experiences through sharing songs together. It has less to do with the actual music itself and more to do about where music takes us or what music invites us towards. But my junior year of college, I took a course on race, class, and gender. And this is sort of what like changed the trajectory for me. Took this race, class, gender course, and we had to do an action project associated with it. Well, my parents were both in corrections. They worked in corrections. And so I decided part of my project was going to be to start a choir at a local prison. Right. So I did this, and that's like a whole separate conversation. But to kind of fast forward through that, I was like, whoa, like not only can music create the space that I needed as a queer youth in upstate New York, but music can also be like at a soul level redeeming for people.
Oh, I love
and
that.
So, I knew that learning at Westminster was setting me up to teach in school districts where they had these like behemoth choral programs where they were winning, like awards of excellence across the board for all of their ensembles, that they were studying solo voice and piano and all of this. And that's fabulous. But I thought, man, redemption, dignity, integrity, identity, like this is so cool and just like gripping. It's like it's Dharma work, right? It's like what all of a sudden I felt just like awake and called here to do. So I moved here to Minnesota. I'm getting my master's in choral conducting, and then I hook up with Sarah Zanussi, and we're founding Communication, right? This after-school program in St. Paul that's still running to this day. I've since left artistic directorship of that organization, but it's the same idea that music can be used as a ladder up. It's about, Natalia, you know this, I say this to you all the time. My baseline philosophy of music education is that good people make good music. And so it's my job to help make good people through music, right? And that doesn't mean that they're not good when they get to me. It's just my job to help them become the best version of themselves or a little bit better in the time that we're sharing a song together, right? And so now I have this privilege of teaching at North Hennepin Community College, where, as I said earlier, it's sort of like Communication all grown up. These are kids, and they're not all kids. I mean, they're non-traditional students too. There's some older students that I have, not traditional college-age students. Many first-generation students, whether they be from immigrant families or, like trailer park families in, outstate Minnesota, right? They're just trying to do their hustle. And for whatever reason, they feel compelled by art. They've opted into art. And what a gift it is to, help them claim their identity and to see their value in a world that tells them that they're not very valuable. In a society, I mean, just look at the discourse of our country right now, right? And we certainly don't want to do a deep dive into politics, but if by singing in my class, I really don't give a, about whether or not you can walk away reading notes and rhythms. I mean, at some point that is important, but if you can walk away from my class walking taller in your body, feeling more at home in the shoes that you came in with, because you don't have to change your shoes. It's not about making you somebody different. It's about how can I teach you to walk that walk with confidence? How can I open up your soul to like the beautiful thing that it is, right?
Even just hearing you talk about this, I'm getting a little choked up because all kids need good teachers. Be they 3-year-olds or be they 33-year-olds, we all need good teachers. Our job as educators is just to help empower kids.
Yeah.
Right. And we do that, be it through English or science or math or choir or ceramics. And it's just our job to help kids just walk out a little better and walk out a little stronger. I just really love that. Mm-hmm. So to close out this interview, I would love to know more about a specific piece that means something to you. And so I'd love for you to share a song with us and tell us, what the song means to you. Maybe you can speak about it or sing. And yeah, just let us know. So Stephanie, why don't you start?
Sure. I had to think a lot about this because of all the music that I sang through my life. I had to choose one song, but I went back to the first classical piece that was introduced to me through voice lessons when I was in the 4th grade, called Vittoria Mio Core by Carissimi. And I think I kind of have just like a lot of strong feelings about it. I was a quiet child and a very serious and not very happy child. And so to have this song introduced to me and to find out that, wow, I really like this. I love like this thing called classical music. And I really loved like the discipline of like this form of singing. And so, and then like the actual translation of the piece, Vittoria Mio Core, like victorious, my heart. Like, I think that was something that was like little 4th grade me, like really needed to sing. So I'm just really, really glad that it was introduced to me. And yeah, it's just been a part of my singing life.
When I was in college and preparing for my senior recital, working with my voice teacher, I learned about the composer Manuel da Falla. And so I became aware of his Siete Canciones Populares Españolas. And for me, these pieces were really special, really important. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't really have access to the Spanish language growing up, despite my own racial background. And that was a point of great embarrassment for me. And I had a really complicated relationship with that. So when I found the Da Falla pieces, they were interesting on a number of levels. But the most impactful is that I got to sing in Spanish. And for the first time, even though I'm not a native Spanish speaker, I got to try it on for size, right? And I got to play around with the language, and it captivated me. And it was connecting to my Latino identity in a very artful way, in a way that put me and my experiences at the center of it. And so it was just a really impactful thing. Al paño fino en la tienda, al paño fino en la tienda, una mancha le cayó, una mancha le cayó. And then it goes on. Por menos precio se vende, por menos precio se vende, porque perdió su valor, porque perdió su valor. Ay.